The new waitress at the shop kept talking my ear off about social news of husbands cheating on their best friends. She even warned me to be wary of my best friend, Song, because she and my husband, Joe, were very close. I thought she was overthinking it and never took it seriously. Until one day, the waitress suddenly called me, her voice buzzing with excitement. She said, "And I saw your husband and your best friend leaving Shinua together with my own eyes. They were even hugging." Later, I started investigating Joe and Song, only to discover a much bigger secret. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and let us know in the comments where you're listening from. I didn't believe the waitress after getting her call, and I told her to stop joking with me. She grew agitated and sent me a photo. When I opened it, my heart instantly felt a chill. The photo was taken outside the local Shinua. Song was leaning into Joe's arms, the two of them incredibly close. This was definitely not the distance friends should have. I immediately called Joe and Song several times, but neither of them answered. I couldn't help but let my mind race with dark thoughts, and my heart grew heavier. Just then, the waitress called me again. "And you've always been so kind to me, that's why I kept reminding you," she said. "Honestly, I've seen your husband and Song being very intimate several times." My mind was a blur. I didn't pick up on the waitress's slightly strange, excited tone. Frankly, I couldn't imagine Joe cheating on me with Song. In fact, it was Song who first introduced me to Joe. They were both incredibly important people in my life. In the evening, Joe returned with his luggage. His face was beaming, as if he had accomplished something significant. His eyes lit up when he saw me. He dropped his luggage in the entryway and bounded over like a golden retriever, pulling me into a tight embrace. "Wife, did you miss me during these few days I was away on business?" "I missed you terribly," he exclaimed. "I wanted to call you first, but my phone died. If I hadn't seen the photo the waitress sent me, I would have kissed him like I always did. But now, I could only force a smile, digging my nails into my palm, and feign composure as I asked him, "I've kind of forgotten, where did you say you went for your last business trip?" His gaze flickered, and he stammered slightly. He'd never been good at lying, and this was a sure sign he was lying. My suspended heart plummeted, and a wave of unease washed over me. Before he came back, I had been trying to convince myself. Perhaps the photo was just a trick of perspective. Perhaps their appearance at Shinua was a coincidence. I stared intently at Joe. Under my gaze, he stuttered, finally managing to say, "It was in the next city, wife. I'm so dirty from the trip, I'm going to take a shower first." He was lying to me. For years of dating, 3 years of marriage, this was the first time he had ever lied to me. I desperately wanted to confront him with the waitress's photo and ask why he was lying. Why he claimed to be on a business trip out of town when he was clearly at Shinua locally. But the words were stuck in my throat, I couldn't utter them. This whole situation was too sudden, I couldn't think straight. Joe took off his jacket, placed it on the sofa, leaned down to kiss my forehead, and went into the bathroom. After he entered, on an impulse, I picked up his jacket and sniffed it. Though extremely faint, I still detected that familiar scent of perfume. It was the exact one Song always wore. And since I bake pastries, I never wear perfume myself. My heart felt like it was being pricked by 1,000 needles, a sharp, spreading pain radiating from my chest. Tears welled up, wetting Joe's jacket. I rummaged through his clothes and found his phone in his pocket. The password was my birthday, it hadn't changed in 7 years. I opened Alipay to check his statements and, sure enough, found a charge from Shinua. The phone slipped from my hand and fell onto the sofa. All this time, Song had been my best friend. And Jinyun had never made me feel wronged. So I trusted them both implicitly, never believing they would cross any lines. But now, the stark evidence felt like a brutal slap to my face. It was sickening, I felt nauseous. I couldn't stand to be in that house another second. I went downstairs, hailed a taxi, and gave the driver the address for the old part of town. In the taxi, I cried while recalling my past with both of them. Song and I grew up together, neighbors and desk mates. We were inseparable, like sisters. We only parted after the college entrance exam. She went to a prestigious university in our city. I, on the other hand, had never been good at academics, but I loved baking, so I enrolled in a vocational school. Both our universities were in the same city, so I often brought my homemade pastries to Song. Song was always pretty and smart, a prominent figure wherever she went. Even at a top university, she still stood out among all the brilliant students. Joe was equally outstanding. I heard he was adopted, but he never shied away from discussing it. He and Song were in the same major and often competed for the top 2 spots in their department. Gradually, they became familiar with each other, frequently discussing their studies. The more often I visited Song, the more I got to know Zhou. Later, when Zhou and I started dating, Song even joked that she was our matchmaker. Actually, before that, everyone thought Zhou and Song made a good couple, and I had secretly rooted for them too. Eventually, I slowly fell in love with Zhou, but I knew we were in different leagues. In my mind, someone as exceptional as him should be with an equally exceptional girl, like Song. So when Zhou confessed his feelings for me, I could barely believe it. I avoided Zhou for a long time afterward, but in the end, Song arranged for us to meet. The day Zhou and I got together, I was curious and asked him why he chose me, an ordinary person, when he had such an amazing Song beside him. Zhou held me tightly. He said I was anything but ordinary. In his eyes, I was cheerful, warm-hearted, like a little son. He said he and Song would only ever be friends because they were both too rational, almost cold. And so, Zhou and I dated for 4 years, got married right after graduation, and have been together for 7 years now. For 7 years, Zhou treated me impeccably. I thought I would be happy forever. I always used to hear about the 7-year itch, how many men, no matter how much they loved their wives before, would eventually cheat. This year was our 7th year together. Could my marriage also be destined to succumb to the so-called 7-year itch? The taxi soon arrived at the old part of town. I climbed the stairs and knocked a few times. My mother quickly opened the door. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I don't even have your favorite fruit ready." My mother pulled me inside, chattering as she went. I grew up in a single-parent household. My father cheated and abandoned his wife and child when I was little. My mother gritted her teeth and raised me alone. Later, when I married Zhou, we moved to the city center. But my mother didn't want to leave and stayed in the old part of town by herself. Back in the familiar surroundings, I couldn't help but cry again. My mother was startled and repeatedly asked, "What's wrong? Did Jinyan upset you?" "You wait here, I'm going to go give that scoundrel a piece of my mind." I shook my head vigorously. My mother was getting older, and I didn't want her to worry about me. I made up an excuse to calm her, saying I was crying because I missed her so much. My mother looked sheepish, chastising me good-naturedly, but her eyes, however, twinkled. "What's the big deal? If you miss me, just come visit. You're a grown woman, there's no need to CR. Why about this?" My mother chatted for a while, then suddenly asked why I had come back alone. After all, Zhou had always accompanied me before. I said it was because Zhou was tired from his business trip, and I didn't want him to travel back and forth. Just then, my mother's phone rang. I don't know what they talked about, but her expression suddenly turned serious as she looked at me. She quickly hung up the phone and walked over to ask, "What's going on?" "Jinyan said he didn't know you were coming over. Did you two have a fight?" My mother stared at me, and I realized I couldn't hide anything from her. So I told her everything, tears and snot streaming down my face. My mother didn't say a word, just gently wiped my tears until I finally calmed down. Then she spoke. "He's your husband, and she's your best friend. If you accuse them wrongly, it could ruin your relationship. Are you sure the people in the photo are Jinyun and Linqing?" I nodded. The photo was very clear, there was no way I could be mistaken. My mother also fell silent. She had seen Zhou's character over the years. It was hard for her to imagine him doing such a thing. To be honest, if I hadn't seen that photo, I would have thought the same. My mother finally told me that whether it was true or false, avoiding the problem wouldn't solve it. She said she would help me uncover the truth, and if they truly had betrayed me, she would support my decision to divorce. With my mother's comfort, I gradually calmed down. At dinner, my mother cooked a table full of all my favorite dishes. As we were eating, the doorbell rang. My mother went to open the door, and soon after, she and Zhou walked in. Zhou rushed over to my side, looking anxious, and tightly squeezed my hand. "Wife, why did you disappear without a word? I called you, but you didn't answer. You scared me to death." As he spoke, his palms were sweating, and he was trembling slightly, his eyes filled with worry. I saw the undeniable concern he had for me, but that photo and the Alipay transaction details were like a fishbone stuck in my throat, nagging at my heart. I didn't know what to say, so I just remained silent. Zhou looked at me strangely, he didn't understand why I was suddenly giving him the cold shoulder. Seeing this, my mother quickly tried to smooth things over, saying she had called me over because she missed me so much. I had also figured out that if Zhou really was cheating, I couldn't give anything away or let him suspect anything if I wanted to uncover the truth. So I also spoke up to ease the tension, telling him my phone had broken, which was why I hadn't received his calls. After dinner, I had no intention of leaving. I stayed until past 9 p.m. when Joe finally asked if it was time to go home. I didn't want to see Joe at all right then, let alone go back with him. Before I could come up with an excuse, my mother spoke. She said she hadn't been feeling well recently and wanted me to stay here in the old part of town to keep her company. Since it was an elder speaking, Joe didn't say anything. But before he left, he held my hand with a lingering grip, repeatedly reminding me to call him every day. The next morning, a new phone was delivered by courier. At noon, Joe called me. He reminded me again not to forget to contact him every day. When our relationship was strong, we'd call each other several times a day. But now, hearing him say such things, all I felt was a pang of irony. The next day, my mother and I went to Shinua. I asked the front desk attendant if we could retrieve surveillance footage, and she asked me to explain the reason. Initially, I just wanted to calmly narrate the situation, but as I spoke, I became overcome with sadness and couldn't help but shed tears. Many passers-by in the lobby were drawn to us and urged the attendant to help. The attendant reluctantly called the security manager, who arrived shortly. Surveillance footage couldn't be randomly accessed and required subsec. U and approval. However, after hearing our story, the security manager agreed to our request. My mother and I followed him to the monitoring room. I told the manager the specific time for which we needed to check the footage, the day Joe was supposed to leave for his business trip. Joe's figure soon appeared on the monitor, followed by another woman, Song. Seeing this, I finally lost all hope. Although the evidence had been clear enough before, I had always tried to make excuses for him, and for Song, in my heart. After watching the footage, I felt all the strength drain from my body. My head swam, and I nearly collapsed, but my mother caught me. "Keep watching," my mother said, her voice short and powerful, her gaze sharp and unwavering on the screen. I bit my lip, fiercely wiped away my tears, and looked again. But strangely, the two of them didn't check in immediately. Instead, they sat in the lobby and waited. After a while, another young girl arrived and walked directly toward them. The three sat down and talked. Then, for some reason, the young girl seemed to get into an argument and appeared very agitated. Finally, the girl left. After she left, Song also departed, and only Joe checked in by himself. My confusion deepened. Wasn't Joe supposed to be with Song, sneaking off for a tryst? Why was another girl suddenly involved? And from beginning to end, only Joe checked in alone, Song never returned after leaving. Just as I was completely at a loss, my mother immediately made a decision. She asked the relevant staff to retrieve the surveillance footage for the next few days. We discovered that the girl met with them for several consecutive days, and each time, they were involved in a heated argument. On the last day, the day Joe returned home, during their conversation, Song showed the girl something on her phone. In any case, the girl quickly left, and Joe, with a look of joy on his face, also left the hotel with Song. As they walked out, Song accidentally stumbled slightly, almost falling. Joe reached out to steady her, and it looked exactly like he was holding Song in his arms. I suddenly understood how the photo my friend sent me came to be. So Jinyun and Song had never betrayed me. But who was that girl? Why was Joe meeting her? Why were Joe and Song keeping it a secret from me? My mind felt like a tangled mess of yarn, growing more and more confused. My mother and I repeatedly thanked the manager, then left the hotel and went home. After watching the surveillance footage, I was both happy and confused. Happy that they hadn't betrayed me, but confused about what exactly was going on. My mother told me that the worst thing a couple can do is hide things from each other. She said that since Joe hadn't betrayed me, if I truly wanted to know the truth, I should just call him and ask. I thought my mother made a lot of sense. I took out my phone, and just as I was about to call Joe, I suddenly received a picture message from an unknown number. It was a photo. In the picture, a man lay quietly in bed, and a girl was nestled in his arms. They looked like a very happy young couple. But I knew both of these people, and precisely because I knew them, I found it unsettling. The phone dropped to the floor. My mother picked it up, and her expression immediately changed. The man in the photo was my husband, Joe. And the girl in his arms was the same person we had seen meeting Joe in the hotel surveillance footage. Just that morning, my mother and I had watched them on the monitor, seemingly confronting each other like enemies. Now, here was such a warm and sweet photo of them, like a couple. I stared intently at the photo, hoping to find traces of editing. But I failed. It was a completely authentic picture. Perhaps I had been silent for too long. The unknown number quickly sent another text message, the tone arrogant. The sender claimed to be Joe's true love and asked me to meet her tomorrow. My emotions were a roller coaster. Just when I thought I had misunderstood Joe and Song, and things were taking a turn for the better, I was suddenly dealt such a painful blow. The happiness I felt coming out of the hotel earlier had vanished without a trace. Sadness and confusion surged into my heart. My mother tried to comfort me. Before, we thought Jinyun and Linqing were involved, but it turned out to be a misunderstanding. Maybe this photo is a trap set by the other party. Let's go meet her tomorrow and hear what she has to say. I found it hard to sleep that entire night, tossing and turning, thinking about all my experiences with Joe and staring at that photo. The next day, I went to the flower shop at the address provided in the text message. When I walked in, there was only one female customer, bending down to select sunflowers. Sunflowers were Joe's favorite flower. The customer heard my footsteps, looked up at me, and it was the same girl from yesterday's photo. She was wearing a loose cotton dress and walked toward me. My heart sank as I clearly saw her face. After she paid, she led me to a seat nearby. "Hello, and my name is Zhao, and I'm currently dating brother," she said. "I know it's immoral to interfere in someone else's family, but in matters of the heart, there's no first come, first served. Brother said he loves me now, but since you've been with him for so long, he's uncomfortable talking to you about divorce. I also didn't want you to be kept in the dark, which is why I asked you to meet today." Her voice sounded gentle, but her words were like a sharp knife, twisting my heart with pain. She spoke a lot, and her eyes shone when she talked about Joe. I could see that she truly loved him. I was reeling from all this, too disoriented to consider whether what she was saying was true or false. I suddenly remembered their argument in the surveillance footage and instantly regained a bit of confidence. I clung to this meager lifeline, pushing down my unease, and asked if what you're saying is true, why were you arguing at Xinhua, and Joe didn't seem very patient with you? Zhao's expression changed slightly after hearing my words, but she quickly returned to normal. She leaned back in her chair, a smile playing on her lips, her eyes fixed on me. "Since you saw that, aren't you curious why I was arguing with them?" As Rose spoke, she placed her hand on her abdomen, a motherly smile on her face. My heart suddenly began to pound, that same hollow, uncertain feeling washed over me again. I sensed that what she was about to say would be terrible. Zhao finally opened her mouth, her voice like a sharp blade cutting through the air, piercing my eardrums. "Because I'm already pregnant with brother's child. But he was afraid you couldn't accept it and might do something drastic. This matter, however, was discovered by Song. Song warned him because of you. He promised Song he would cut ties with me, but I know the one he loves is me. And if you truly love him, you shouldn't hold him back, you should set him free." As if afraid I wouldn't believe her, Zhao showed me a prenatal checkup report and a sonogram. I stared blankly at those items, my face deathly pale. Seeing that she had achieved her goal, Zhao left, looking satisfied. I remained stunned for a long time before taking out my phone to call Song, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I called her law firm, and her assistant said she had just taken on a major case and would likely be unavailable for a while. I hung up the phone, feeling like a lost soul with nowhere to go. I don't remember how I got home. All I know is that as soon as I entered the house, my vision blurred, and I passed out. Before I completely lost consciousness, I vaguely heard my mother's terrified and worried shouts. When I woke up again, I was in bed. My mother sat on a chair beside me, chin propped on her hand, dozing off. The window was slightly ajar, and as the wind blew in, strands of hair at her temp less fluttered in the breeze. The white hairs hidden beneath her dark ones stood out, one by one. Thinking about how my mother had worried about me my entire life, a pang of sorrow hit me. Perhaps because she was so concerned about me, my mother wasn't sleeping soundly. She soon woke up. Seeing that I was conscious, my mother immediately smiled, sat on the edge of the bed, and fussed over me. Finally, she asked me what happened at the meeting today, and why I had fainted as soon as I got home. I didn't want to worry her, so I decided to handle the situation with Joe myself. I feigned a relaxed demeanor, smiling as I said that the girl had pursued Joe before, and after being rejected, she was resentful and deliberately faked the photo to mislead me. My mother seemed to believe my explanation and didn't press the issue further. After dinner, I told my mother that since the misunderstanding with Joe had been resolved, I should head back. As she saw me out the door, my mother suddenly took my hand and said, "Tong Tong, no matter what decision you make, your mother will support you. If you get tired, come home, and Mom will cook you something delicious." A lump formed in my throat. I forced back my tears and held my mother for a long time before leaving. Joe returned home after work, his face lit up with a smile when he saw me. He threw his briefcase down, rushed over, and clung to me, his face nuzzling my shoulder. Wife, you're finally back. I missed you so much these past few days. Why didn't you tell me you were coming home? I would have picked you up. I smiled and changed the subject. I had already made up my mind to find as much evidence as possible of Zhou and Zhao together. If he and Zhao really had a child, I would divorce him. But I wouldn't let those who betrayed me off easy. I would use the evidence to secure more for myself. So for the next few days, Zhou and I acted as if we were back to our old selves. He had no idea I had other plans. I had already hired a private detective and fully entrusted him with taking photos of Zhou and Zhao's betrayal. That weekend, Zhou and I were relaxing on the sofa watching a movie. Zhou suddenly received a call, and whatever the person on the other end said, his expression changed drastically. His hands trembling, he grabbed his car keys from the coffee table and rushed toward the entryway, not even taking time to put on his jacket. As he was putting on his shoes, he told me, "Wife, something urgent came up at the company. I can't stay with you right now. I don't know when I'll be back tonight, so don't wait up for me." Before I could answer, he hurried out the door. He had only ever been that frantic when it concerned me. I had a premonition that his hurried departure had something to do with Zhao. I touched the sofa beside me, the lingering warmth and the warmth in my heart both slowly faded. I called the private detective and instructed him to follow Zhou closely. In the movie, the male and female leads finally overcame all obstacles and were together. They hugged and kissed sweetly. I remembered how sweet Zhou and I used to be. I huddled on the sofa, my mind blank. About an hour later, the detective sent me many photos. Looking at them, my tears suddenly started to fall. In the pictures, Zhou was supporting Zhao, and the two of them were standing in front of the OBGYN department. The photos were very clear, and knowing Zhou as I did, I could see his nervousness and concern. So Ro had been telling the truth after all. Zhou really had cheated and even had a child with someone else. I took out my phone and called Zhou. He answered quickly. I asked him if he was done with work yet and when he would be back. Zhou was silent for a moment before answering, his voice stammering, a clear sign he was about to lie. Wife, the company suddenly asked me to work overtime. I don't know when I'll be back. When we were together, I had once told him that hiding things was a major taboo in a relationship between a man and a woman, and that no matter what happened in the future, we shouldn't hide anything from each other. But now, he was lying to me for another woman. Over the next few days, Zhou kept finding excuses to go to the hospital during certain times, and the photos the detective sent me increased daily. I collected all these photos as evidence for a future divorce. Just as I was going to my best friend's law firm to look for a divorce lawyer, I ran into her returning. She must have just returned from a business trip, looking travel-worn and tired, and came directly to the office with her suitcase to hand over her cases. When Lin Qing saw me, her eyes lit up, and she rushed over to hug me, even giving me a kiss on the cheek. "Baby, why are you here? Are you looking for me? Good thing we're on the same wavelength. I just got back and finished my handover and saw you. Come on, I'm taking you to get some good food." Song pulled me to a restaurant. She ordered many of my favorite dishes, knowing my taste so well. She had always been so kind to me. Watching her meticulously order, I felt guilty for having misunderstood her and Zhou earlier. While waiting for our food, she suddenly asked, "By the way, you didn't just come to the law firm to see me, did you? What happened? Is it serious enough to need a lawyer?" I forced a smile and began, "I already went to Xingyue and saw the surveillance footage, and Before I could finish, Song suddenly looked guilty and, afraid I would blame her, eagerly interjected, "Actually, I didn't want to keep it from you. But Jinyun kept begging me, saying that the other party wasn't someone to be trifled with, and he was afraid you'd worry if you knew." I thought he had a point, so I went along with him to keep it a secret. "Don't worry, the matter has been resolved." I couldn't help but frown. It seemed Song had no idea about Zhou and Zhao. I asked her, "Lin Qing, can you tell me specifically what happened?" "All right," she replied. "Since you already know, I'll just explain everything clearly." It turned out Zhao was a new employee at Zhou's company. She was assigned to work under him. Zhou had a good temper and was responsible, dedicated to mentoring junior staff. Even if they made a mistake, he wouldn't severely scold them but would patiently guide them. Over time, Zhao developed feelings for Zhou. She brought him food and drinks every day, calling them tokens of appreciation for his mentorship. At first, Zhou didn't think much of it, but after a few days, he started to feel something was off, especially with Zhao's clingy demeanor. Zhou wondered if he was being overly self-absorbed or imagining things, but out of caution, he began to distance himself from Zhao. He even assigned work-related interactions to others, avoiding direct contact with her. However, once, a business trip arranged for him and Zhao to go together. It was during this trip that trouble arose. That day, he was completely disoriented after coming down from the negotiating table, having had too much to drink. He couldn't remember anything that happened afterward. All he knew was that when he woke up the next day, he and Zhao were lying together, their clothes disheveled. Zhao claimed they had slept together and demanded Zhou take responsibility. Zhou, of course, refused. Even though he had been drunk, he knew he hadn't done anything. Zhao kept pressuring him, threatening to tell me everything. Zhou was worried this would hurt me, so he approached Song. Song worked at a reputable law firm. Having handled many cases, she'd seen her share of bizarre situations and was incredibly sharp at reading people. She immediately got the gist of it. That's why Zhou had falsely told me he was going on an out-of-town business trip, planning to resolve everything in secret. There was no surveillance in the room, so Zhou and Song searched for evidence for a long time. Fortunately, that day, Zhou had felt uncomfortable and led back a corner of the curtain, and by coincidence, a celebrity was staying in the room next door. Both rooms had been fully recorded by a paparazzi across the street. When they showed this footage to Zhao, the matter was finally resolved. Song said, "That's how it happened. Zhou was foolish to be manipulated by another woman, but he definitely didn't betray you. And don't blame him, he was just afraid you'd worry." I looked at Song's relaxed expression, my heart sinking. I couldn't help but wonder, had she also been deceived by Zhou and Zhao? But then I thought, that didn't make sense. If Xingyun was just putting on an act, why would he voluntarily let Song know about this matter? I fell into deep thought, my brows furrowing further. Song saw my expression and asked worriedly, "And, what's wrong?" I thought about it and decided to tell Song everything Zhao had told me, as well as Zhou accompanying her to the OBGYN. After hearing it all, Song flew into a rage. She slammed her hand on the table, making the dishes and glasses rattle, nearly toppling onto the floor. "Damn him, Zhou. How dare he betray you? I'll go break his legs right now, what a scumbag." Song ranted for a long time, then suddenly realized, wait a minute, if those two were having an affair, why would Zhou come to me to deal with Zhao? Plus, I saw that surveillance footage, and it really was Zhao staging the whole thing herself. That was what puzzled me too. We couldn't figure anything out even after we finished eating. Song pulled me along and said, "Alright, why don't we just go straight to the hospital and ask him? If he really cheated on you, you can divorce him, and I'll get you the best divorce lawyer." Song and I followed the information the private detective had found and arrived at Zhao's hospital room. We stood at the door. I took a deep breath, just about to knock, when Song impatiently pushed the door open. It hit the wall with a bang. The two people inside startled and looked up. "Zhou." And I made eye contact. He was sitting in a chair nearby, wearing glasses, looking serious, seemingly working. Zhao was lying in bed. The two appeared quite distant, certainly not like an adulterous couple. Zhou panicked when he saw me, quickly standing up and saying, "Why wife, why are you here?" Please don't misunderstand, I can explain." Song walked straight over, grabbed his collar, and yelled, "Zhou, you scumbag. What do you mean by this? Accompanying another woman for her prenatal checkup? How can you face an? Tell me, are you cheating?" I stood beside Song, looking seriously at Zhou, and said, "What exactly is your relationship with her? If her child truly is yours, then we'll get a divorce. Don't worry, I won't cling to you." Zhou immediately panicked. He quickly pulled away from Song's grip and tightly held my hand. "Wife, you've really misunderstood, I'll just tell you the whole story." Zhou seemed afraid I would leave. He pulled me to a nearby chair, gripping my hand tightly, as if to ensure I wouldn't run off, before finally explaining the full account. Strictly speaking, Zhao did have a connection to Zhou, but it wasn't an adulterous one. Zhao's husband suffered from a heart condition and passed away 2 months ago from complications.